Hello, distinguished guests, staff and students. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at the 2017 Nuffield Australia National Conference. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. Greetings from the USA. It is important that we have organisations such as Nuffield who support Australian primary producers, as Nuffield has done for over 60 years. And as you probably know, the pace of change in agriculture is escalating, especially with the increasing usages of technology. Things were certainly different when I was growing up on stations in the outback of northwest Australia. I remember our mail was delivered at another station, Coolarwanya, every 2 weeks, which we'd then have to fly to or drive for hours to get to in order to collect the mail. There was no telephone. We had to fuel our small plane manually, then fly to the nearest phone at Marble Bar. Windmills we had to climb up to fix. There were no solar pumps, walk-over weighers, digitalized UHF communication systems, let alone drones, to help staff run the stations. You are entering an exciting time in agriculture, where advances in technology will play an important role in station management and improve efficiency and safety. When you graduate, you will need to bring good scientific skills with you and continue to research to help the properties you work on or with maintain or achieve international cost competitiveness. As you may be aware, currently Australia needs to export 2/3 of our beef. So for our cattle industry to grow, we need to keep internationally cost competitive and develop more overseas markets, and similarly for other sectors of our agricultural industries. We need to listen to what our customer wants, including fresh beef and offal. Accordingly, we confirmed recently that Hancock has entered into a strategic cooperation agreement with ASO for the supply of beef cattle to China. ASO is an entity jointly formed by Sino-Australia Modern Industry Park, New Hope Group, Zhejiang Seaport Group and Harvest Fund to develop a cattle receiving and processing facility on Jintang Island, China. Jintang Island is located off the coast of Ningbo in China's warmer south and Greater Shanghai area, and has a population of more than 200 million people within a 200-kilometre radius of the island, a huge growth opportunity for Australian agriculture. The Jintang Island facility will have a capacity of 150,000 head per annum, with the potential to expand that capacity up to 300,000 head per annum in the future, and potentially more as growth allows. Importantly for Northern Australia, affected by blue tongue, the island effectively quarantines such cattle, which would form an important breakthrough in getting northern exports into China. As Asia grows, Australia will grow, provided our governments understand the need to make our country attractive to investment and significantly lessen their red tape and taxation burdens on businesses to enable Australian agriculture to be internationally cost competitive. By 2050, Asia's middle class alone is forecast to grow to over 3 billion people. That's 3 billion people right on our doorstep, who will increase demand for Australian protein, goods and services. We are blessed to be located close to some of the world's biggest and fastest growing economies. In agriculture, the economic opportunities for Australia are extensive, and with our natural endowments of clean air, clean water and extensive lands, together with increased usage of innovative, practical technologies, we could be well placed as a country on the global stage to supply both ourselves and our Asian neighbours, providing we welcome investment and maintain or achieve international cost competitiveness. We've lost international competitiveness already in areas. Remember Tasmania? It used to be known as the Apple Isle, not anymore. Across all of our stations, we are undergoing a technology transformation. We have introduced this technology to our Hancock stations successfully, and are now, with the support of our minority partners, rolling this out across Kidman too. We are rolling out the Digitalized Uhf System, walkover weighing systems and solar pumps, as well as hydraulic lifts, improved hydraulic weaner cradles with head supports, plus additional water facilities and more. The Digitalized Uhf System enables clear and quick and widespread communication from anywhere on the property to anywhere in Australia or overseas through the use of a handheld device. It is currently used in the mining industry and by our defence forces. The digitalized UHF devices enable private and group phone calls, text messages, brief emails, and can transmit emergency notices so that they can be responded to quickly throughout the station, improving staff safety and enabling greater efficiency for managers. The digitalised devices mean that a station manager inspecting cattle at the farmost point of, say, Ruby Plains Station in northern outback Australia can in a few seconds speak directly with his station staff. Kidman's head office over 2,500 kilometres away in Adelaide, or a customer in Tokyo over 6,000 kilometres away. The digital UHF system also has advanced GPS technology, ensuring alerts are sounded when nearing the property's border, tracking daily routes of staff, even recording the speed they are driving. Another major technology we are rolling out is walkover weighing, an innovative self-mustering technology which improves animal welfare through reducing the need for mustering or remustering cattle, leaving the cattle more relaxed and able to eat and drink when they need. For those who don't know, walkover scales are fitted near a water point and record the weight of the cattle that walk over it. The weight of each animal will indicate the most appropriate destination for it, and a corresponding gate will open, leading it into a paddock if underweight, or leave the car in the yards if ready for market. Cattle that are pregnant can be monitored and guided into a preferred paddock. High-performance breeding stock, a cow that rebreeds within a 12-month cycle, can be more easily identified. Running on solar power, this cutting-edge self-mustering technology will assist our stations with management of cattle in the paddocks where introduced, eliminating guesswork and repeat musterings for timely marketing, and give better ability to predict when trucks will be required to send cattle to market. In addition to providing a safer way for cattle to be mustered, with less maintenance for vehicles and less fuel expense. Solar pumps are also very important, especially in our north, making critical daily water more reliable for our cattle and saving the risk for station employees of climbing windmills, which I remember so well from my childhood. A technology we plan to adapt from our usage in the mining sector is the use of drones. Drones are able to observe, photograph and film in real time things such as dam and river levels, fences, fires, floods, cattle movements, station and other operations. They are also able to monitor tanks, troughs, priority gateways, lick supplement checks, fence lines and the pasture. Representing one of the largest commercial trials for drones in agriculture, we recently completed testing of drones on our Kimberley stations, and after CASA licenses obtained, we will roll out this technology across all of our stations, hopefully commencing this year. The two types of drones we trialled and are rolling out include a beyond the line of sight UAV and a multi-rotor helicopter style drone. The beyond the line of sight drone, as its name implies, is able to fly beyond a human's visual line of sight, enabling it to reach the farmost corners of a station with its multispectral cameras. This drone is able to travel a distance of approximately 40 kilometres from the base station and cruise at a speed of 60 kilometres per hour. It is also able to carry and transport by air items weighing up to 4 kilograms, allowing for items such as tools, emergency supplies and medical needs such as EpiPens to be quickly and easily transported around the station. Have you ever been in the situation where your technology is in low battery and you don't know if it will last when you need it to? Well, this drone will automatically return to its home base when its battery voltage is low. It will also return to its home station if the telemetry link is broken, that is, the link between the drone and the operator, even auto-landing itself. The multi-rotor drone we also trialled has many of the same features, though travelling less distance and less fast, and is able to conduct many of the same tasks, but is capable of carrying more, up to 6 kilograms. These are examples of what technology can add to our stations, but as I said at the beginning, please learn good scientific skills and continue to research and put these into practice, as much more can and needs to be done to continue to improve our industry. For instance, more research is needed into optimum grain feeding for different types of cattle and optimum aging, whether more aging, be that wet or dry, could lessen the time and expense of expensive grain feeding. Better treatments to lessen stock pain and make cattle births more safe. Studies to support the expensive shading in parts of birthing paddocks and elsewhere, to encourage stations and farms in hot areas to do more shading. We at Hancock are already adding shading to stockyards, well facilities, holding pens, water troughs and birthing paddocks, and rolling this out to Kidman too for their northern stations, as I believe this is not only clearly better for cattle, but will also in future be supported with positive results. At Bannister Downs, our ethical dairy partnership in Northcliffe, West Australia, we are leading the way with our innovative and high-tech practices. Bannister's soon-to-be completed new creamery facility will be open to the public and will see cows milked on a voluntary basis in a robotic system designed to minimise herd stress and maximise cow comfort, a first in West Australia. Along with other investments at Bannister, this will allow us to significantly increase our production rate, allowing us to sell more locally and also export greater quantities of our premium milk and cream. However, this is only part of the story. What can't be overlooked is government, in particular its red tape, compliance and other time-consuming and expensive burdens, discouraging the investment agriculture needs to stay competitive in Australia, and consequently limiting the dollars available for investment in advanced technology for stations and farms. Let us look at some examples to illustrate just how much our cattle industry is lagging behind others, such as Brazil. Or, to put it another way, what an exciting future our agricultural industry could have with smaller government and less red tape. Both Brazil and Australia are the largest two countries in the southern hemisphere, with similar land masses, Australia at 7.69 million square kilometres and Brazil just a little larger. Both are leading economies in their regions and both experience similar climatic conditions in many parts of their countries. Please ask yourself, how many head of beef cattle does Brazil have? And how many head of cattle do you think Australia has? The answer is astonishing. Approximately, Brazil currently has more than 210 million head of beef cattle, compared to Australia's approximately 25 million. That's right. Brazil, a country with a similar landmass, has a cattle industry nearly 10 times bigger than Australia's. Let's look at a further comparison, that between West Australia and Queensland. Queensland, in long-serving former Premier Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen's time, welcomed investment and business, and a thriving cattle industry was built up. Today, according to Meat and Livestock Australia's 2016-2017 figures, Queensland has a herd size of approximately 10.6 million. And what about West Australia, with its much larger land area? Would you think would have more cattle than Queensland? Well, regrettably we don't. Indeed, we have far less, despite our much larger land area, a tiny approximately 2 million cattle. Unfortunately for us in WA, we have lots of government tape that seriously hampers our cattle industry. Take just one example of government regulation in West Australia that acts to prevent our industry from developing. Many of you would know of the Fitzroy River in the Kimberleys in West Australia. Across the average wet season, approximately 7,000 gigalitres of water is wasted as it uselessly flows into the ocean. Now, 7,000 gigalitres of water can be hard to put into perspective, but think of it this way. Every year, 14 times the amount of water of the huge Sydney harbour flows through the Fitzroy, past many stations, out unused into the ocean. As it stands in 2017, the government only allows one water licence to access water from the Fitzroy River. And guess how much water the government permits to be taken? 6 gigalitres. This leaves approximately 99.9991% of the water to run out uselessly into the Indian Ocean. We all know that water is absolutely essential for cattle and to grow cattle numbers. How can we advance one of our biggest industries if it is prevented from accessing a vital component for growth, good water? We can't raise cattle without adequate water supplies, and we sure can't match Brazil without adequate water supplies. Another reason why utilising fresh, clean water from the Fitzroy River and other flowing rivers is a good idea is that it would be better for cattle. Stagnant, unfenced dam water, which cattle often drink, can be dirty and contaminated, containing diseases such as E. coli and Giardia, causing illness and deaths. Water in the Fitzroy doesn't suffer from these problems. In addition, according to American and Canadian research, cattle could also put on between 15 and 28% more weight over a year just by drinking clean water. Allowing access to water from the Fitzroy would not only be a win for pastoralists, but also a win for the animals, as they would be drinking cleaner, healthier water. In short, if the government allowed us to tap into this and other huge, wasted, good water sources, we would be able to increase our cattle numbers, and just imagine the benefit to all the related industries that depend upon agriculture. It is too often forgotten that it's not just stations and farms that would benefit from water and less red tape to let them grow, but the myriad of other industries through suppliers such as tanks, troughs, hydraulic crushers, plus truckers, even accountants, and many more who would grow along with an increasing agricultural industry. I'm not the only one pointing out that red tape and inefficient bureaucracy is negatively affecting West Australia, scaring off investment. The Kimberley Pilbara Cattlemen's Association, in a recent submission to a Senate Red Tape Committee, outlined some real examples of red tape getting in the way of progress in our agricultural industry and warned that investment in WA worth at least $500 million is at risk because of this. The Cattlemen's Association highlighted one family-owned station in the Kimberleys who encountered significant roadblocks when trying to install a pivot on their station, which represented well less than 1% of their station's landmass. The submission said, quote, "In order to put in a pivot, the Department of Environmental Regulation announced they had to complete a flora and fauna survey. The family waited over 6 months for a response to their application and were then referred back and forward between Department of Environmental Regulation and Department of Parks and Wildlife for no less than 2 years. The family received from the Department of Environmental Regulation correspondence requiring them to complete a flora and fauna survey within 28 days from the date of their letter. This is an impossible feat living in remote Australia. In order to perform an accurate flora and fauna survey, certain plants need to be flowering to accurately recognise and count them. They were told they must look for a plant with a purple flower, but this plant wasn't flowering during the time requested for the survey," end quote. I could quote other nonsensical red tape examples from the Kimberley Pilbara Cattlemen's Association report, but unfortunately time does not permit me to. I would also like to share a true story with you though, told directly to me by wonderful people who had lived and worked on cattle stations for about 50 years. They were selling their beloved station, and they commented to me why they were selling. They said, "It's not the heat that lasts many months of the year, the isolation, the floods, the fires, the snakes, the wet and its damage, even the droughts or earthquakes, but the government red tape." They would spend long days on station tasks and responsibilities, only to have to work night after night on government paperwork, including restricting things they wanted to do to improve their station, increasing critical water, and increasing the small extent of pasture under introduced feed, which had performed very successfully on trial. They worked more than 1,000 miles from Perth and could not afford a Perth office to handle the government paperwork for them. Indeed, what they did spend on government tape actually worked against them from investing in better safety they dearly wanted to achieve, such as a new plane for the manager, theirs was decades old, and lighting for their runway so that the flying doctor could land at night for emergencies. In short, too little is understood by our governments of the damage their tape is doing to productive investment, safety, and adding to costs and delays. While Australia lags behind, other countries such as the United States and India are leading the way with red tape reduction. President Trump is taking meaningful and important steps to reduce government red tape across many industries, including those that affect the American agricultural sector. As President Trump said recently while in Europe, quote, "The West became great not because of paperwork and regulations, but because people were allowed to chase their dreams and pursue their destinies," end quote. Prime Minister Modi is also taking similar action in India, tackling India's notorious bureaucracy where, recently for example, he has reduced the time it takes to incorporate a company from 2 to 3 months to just 24 hours. Quote, "If a young person wishes to start his work through a startup, then he can register the company in a day," end quote. Prime Minister Modi has slashed governmental environmental restrictions on water. Government tape that, although burdensome and possibly well-meaning, did little to assist India's water problems. If this can be done in India by dedicated leadership, which has been saddled with British, USSR and Indian government tape, some of the most notorious in the world, why can't we do this in Australia? With leaders who recognise the importance of this for our cost competitiveness, for creating jobs and raising living standards, and for encouraging the investment Australia needs. While India has cut government tape and doubled its economic growth and become the leading large economy in terms of economic growth, raising the living standards of its people and enabling opportunities for their future, Australia is still struggling with excessive government tape, record debt, investment percentage down to less than anti-business, anti-investment, socialist Whitlam government times. What do you think this is doing to Australia's future and future jobs? We need to learn from President Trump and Prime Minister Modi in removing costly and burdensome red tape to allow our economy and, importantly, our agricultural industry to invest and thrive. For our agricultural industry to continue to be a success, we must seize the opportunity for new and growing markets that Asia provides and continually raise with our governments to make the necessary reforms to allow our industry to invest and grow. And we must continue to pursue research and practical agri-tech. I hope that those of you in the audience and your families on the land will join us to celebrate Australia's inaugural National Agriculture and Related Industries Day in Canberra on November the 21st. This inaugural annual day is an initiative I founded is being conducted with assistance from the Pastoralists and Graziers Association of West Australia, the Northern Territory Cattlemen's Association, and other rural organisations, and aims to recognise the importance of one of Australia's most important industries. I wish all students all the best with your studies and continuing research adopting good scientific research principles, and for your future in one of our historic industries, an industry Australia should be very proud of, which, with your efforts, could become even more important for our country. And maybe one day we might see you on a Hancock or Kidman station. Hope you enjoy your New Horizons conference. Thank you.